Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Kellyanne, and I'm a bookseller with Mysterious Galaxy. I'm so excited to be introducing our authors tonight for our event. Tonight, we are hosting Alex London. He's the author of 25 books for children, teens, and adults, including Dog Tags, Tides of War, and Wild Ones for middle grade readers. Tonight, we're celebrating his newest book, City of Thieves, which is the first installment in the Battle Dragons books. We also have, as you might notice, our conversation partner and moderator, Tui Sutherland, with us. Tui is the author of the Menagerie trilogy, the Pet Trouble series, and a contributing author for the Erin Hunter team behind the Spirit Animals and Seekers series, but we all know her from their best-selling Wings of Fire series. Before I pass it off to the both of them, because I know you guys are here for them and not me, I'm sure you guys have all found the lovely live chat section. Feel free to type whatever you want in there and say hi to our authors during the event. And below us, there is a green button that says buy books with signed personalized book plates. We have book plates from Tui for her books, and also are offering personalizations for Alex's book if you order it through Mysterious Galaxy. Just write in your order comments who you would like him to sign that to. And last but not least, there's the ask a question button at the bottom, which again, you guys have had no trouble finding. There's always already a ton in there. So an important thing to note is that you can upvote whatever questions you want answered. So if there's something that you are dying to know, make sure that you upvote it so that it gets answered. And with that, I'm going to turn my screen off and let the event get started. Have a good one, you guys.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Hi, Alex.
Hi. It's so excited to see you and to be here. Thanks for doing this with me.
Oh, of course. I'm so excited. This book is so much fun, and I really feel like Wings of Fire fans, like, what's not to love? It's exactly up their alley. So I hope there are lots of Wings of Fire readers here tonight who are going to be like, oh, another dragon book, and come read this, because it's really awesome.
Well, thank you so much. I'm a deep lover of dragons. Obviously, you paved so much of the way writing dragons. When the idea first came, and I was talking with Scholastic about it, obviously yours was a comp title they brought up, and the pitch was basically that we put together was it's the Fast and the Furious meets Wings of Fire. I was like, well, okay, let's get that. And that was kind of my driving thing the whole time.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. Can I ask about, is that a dragon behind you that's like changing colors?
That is a color changing 3D dragon lamp that someone gave me this week. What an awesome gift. It turns out you write a dragon book, you get a bunch of dragon stuff.
Oh my gosh, can I tell you? Like, my office is full of little dragons that people have made me. Oh, look at this cutie pie. Dragon.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's amazing. I stole
a lot more coming your way.
3-headed dragon from my daughter, my 3.
I have that one too.
I have not written a 3-headed dragon into Battle Dragons yet.
Neither have I. I feel like it would be hard in Wings of Fire, but it would fit really well in your world. I feel like, oh my gosh, that would be so cool in your world. Like, how would you manage all 3 of them? Actually, what would be really fun to write if I put one in Wings of Fire would be them just arguing with each other all the time, because they would all have different feelings, and they would be big feelings.
I'm writing book 3 in the series now, and I just put in a myth about a 3-headed dragon. So I feel like I'm getting there, and entirely just because this puppet was sitting on my desk.
Inspiring you.
Yeah. But I feel like because the book just came out, I feel like before we get into chatting with each other, I should tell people here who are a lot of Wings of Fire fans I'm seeing in the chat, which is awesome because I'm one too, and am dying to ask you questions, but I'll resist the urge. Just a little about what Battle Dragons is, right?
Yeah, please do, absolutely.
And I'll do the quick. It's set in the futuristic city of Dracopolis, which is a city basically built around dragons. If you picture Venice with the canals and the boats, it's like that, except instead of water, it's the air, and instead of boats, it's dragons. They do everything. They're the taxis, they're the buses. But there's a criminal underworld where 4 gangs battle for control of this criminal underworld in illegal midnight dragon battles on souped-up dragons. And our hero, Abel, who is 13 years old, gets caught up for various reasons in a dragon battling gang. And with a stolen dragon, caught between dynamics with his family, with his friends, and with this dragon he has to learn how to master, even though he's afraid of heights and a little afraid of dragons, and has to learn how to master this ferocious, rare dragon, a Sunrise Reaper, and win a battle against every element in his life and in this city. And so it's a story about family and friendship and awesome dragons.
Really awesome dragons, I have to say. I was actually really curious whether you've already made a list of all the different kinds of, I mean, I guess if you're on book 3, you must have a lot more now, but like, did you start with a list of the, like, all the different kinds?
So this is the actual question I wanted to ask you too, because so I have this is the copy editing style sheet. So the problem was I did not make a detailed plan about the dragons. I kind of wrote with the, like, whatever's awesome is what I'm going to do next. And so I kept adding awesome elements. So like the first scene I thought of, which it's a minor spoiler, I guess, but it's right at the beginning of the book, is where Abel meets his dragon. And I just envisioned this scene of this looking up, you're seeing this beautiful starscape in front of you. And then you realize, wait a minute, I'm inside. How am I looking at the stars? And you realize you're not. You're looking at the underside of a dragon's wing that camouflages itself looking like starlight. And when it opens its mouth to blow fire at you, it looks like the sun rising, and then you're incinerated. And I was like, that's so cool. Now I have to figure out the rest of that dragon and why that exists. So I created a taxonomy where I did, okay, there's going to be 3 basic kinds of dragons. There's going to be long wings, medium wings, and short wings. And within that, there'll be all the different, like, breeds and with the different abilities and all of that stuff. And then there'll be, like, the miscellaneous, like, wingless dragons and the educational dragons they use at school. But from that, I gave myself a lot of freedom.
Wait, can I ask you have wingless dragons?
Yeah, so there's I mentioned them very much in passing in the first book. They'll come to play a larger role as the series goes on. But so there's the educational resource dragons that they use in the school.
Those are really funny.
So
I mean, until they get scary.
Yeah, the kids all call them not educational resource dragons, and they call them nerds for short, NERDs. But they're the, like, low rent. They buy them in bulk. Schools buy them in bulk, and they're these sort of very stupid dragons that don't fly or really do anything. And they have kind of a herd mentality where the rest of the dragons are very individualistic. So I kind of created those broad categories, but I didn't really keep track. I just kept making up awesome stuff. And now, as I'm writing book 3, I'm having to go back and, like, do word searches to be like, wait, what was this dragon riding, and what was its power, and what color were its eyes? So
Oh my God.
You're on book 19, 20?
No, I just finished 15, but there's a couple, like, other ones in between, so it's the 17th one, actually.
17th one. So did you start with a plan? Do you have a running document that keeps track for you?
Well, now I have the wiki online, which is extremely lovely and helpful of them.
So you hear your first fans. You're using your fans to give yourself information about what you wrote.
I mean, I do also, so actually what I did for a while is I put all the manuscripts in one giant manuscript. So it was like one big Word document where I would just add in the latest manuscript. And that way I could search, just like you were talking about. I do like a search for each character. And like, did I say that these two are related, or was that just in my head? And like, you know, and sometimes it takes me a while to figure things out. But then I got to like the 10th book and my Word document just exploded. It was like, I can't, what are you doing? Too many words. Like, wouldn't have anything to do with me anymore.
So I found the Scholastic style sheet from the copy editor is really useful for that, because they list every little thing you did. So I need to organize it. I'm going to build myself a book Bible.
Yeah, I think it's really helpful. I do have like also a list, like a document of names, like a dragon names document, where it's like listed out per tribe. And I do like, every once in a while I'll like at the beginning of a book, I'm like, okay, I'm going to like note when I use each name and like who it goes to and like how they're related. And by the halfway through the book, I'm like, I can't keep track anymore.
You get in your flow, right? Like things start surprising you and you don't want to lose that by creating a dictionary.
Yeah, exactly. You get all caught up and all excited.
Yeah.
Actually, so if you're working on the 3rd one, is it a trilogy or is it going to keep going, do you think?
The hope for all of us, it really depends how many people buy it, I think, at this point, is that it keeps going and becomes a long-running series. So I have a sense of the arc that I want for this first series, for Abel's story and his family. And I have the number of books in my head and where it goes. And then I have an idea for another arc of a couple of standalones that focus on some other things in the world. So hopefully that interests Scholastic too, and that it keeps going. But that's entirely up to readers.
Oh, that's so exciting. Because I was wondering about that, like whether because I know you've done trilogies before and a duology. And I was wondering, like, do you plan it that way? Like, did you go into this thinking trilogy or 5 books, or how long is Abel's story? Can I ask?
Well, so originally when I sold it, I thought 1 book. I wanted to do a standalone. I was so tired of series writing and of keeping track of all these things. And like, I was like, I just want to write a standalone, awesome adventure. But Scholastic said, no, this is at least a trilogy. Here's money. So I was like, okay, fine.
Make me write more about dragons.
I fell so in love with the world I was creating. I fell so in love with the city of Dracopolis and these characters in it and this family. I hadn't expected to write Abel's parents into the book as much as I did. They surprised me by being so relevant to the story and active in it in a way that didn't take away his agency. Because that's often the challenge, right? With writing kid main characters, you have to kill the parents or get rid of them somehow. And I didn't want to do that. So giving his parents a role, I was like, I want more time with them too. And pretty soon I realized there is enough in this world that I could go wild. You know, I was drawing on my love of like Akira and the old cyberpunk Blade Runner and all that cyberpunk stuff to build this city, and also all the fantasy dragons I loved. And I worked in some subtle references to things that I was like, there's just so much room. I want to build more. I want more of this world.
Well, that was that's it. That was what I kept thinking. I was like, once you've built a world as cool as this, like, don't you just want to stay in it, like, as long as you can? So I'm glad to hear that. Hopefully,
I had to cut a lot of world building stuff that was just slowing it down. So there's a scene, a very brief scene that takes place in a drag club where they do dragon drag, where humans dress up as dragons and perform.
Oh, that's right. I did see that part. Yes, of course. That was very cool. And the one with the rainbow scales and the like rainbow, distracting everybody.
Exactly. The rainbow, what did I call that dragon? The Rainbow Reaper. And I came up with so many different dragon drag names that I couldn't use. So I need to keep writing more just so I can use all of these great names.
Just like one whole book set in that club.
Yeah.
At least. Oh my gosh. Well, actually, it was interesting because I read this and I read Proxy and I've started Black Wings Beating, which I'm reading right now. And what's been really interesting about all 3 of them is that your world building has a sense of history to it. Like, it's not just like, here's a cool world. It's like, here's a cool world that's been here for a while. And here's some stuff that happened before we're just going to hint at. And I really love that. Like, I think that's one of like the neatest things about good world building. So I'm really hoping we get to see a little more. Because there's like a story in here about sort of the history of how dragons and humans like started getting along. I have suspicions about that story.
Yeah, I bet you do. Yeah, I've had a lot of fun thinking of the mythology of the world and why it is and why people see and treat dragons the way they do and why dragons see and treat themselves the way they do and treat each other the way they do. And you know, I think it's one of the big questions I ask myself about world building. And I think this is something you do so well especially in the first story arc of Wings of Fire, is what does everyone in the book, I always ask myself, what does everyone in the book know about their world and what's true about their world?
Yeah.
Because sometimes those things are different, right?
And who's lying and why? Like, exactly. What do they get from it?
Exactly. And so figuring that stuff out is great because then you can drop seeds. And it's not like everyone spends all day long talking about the history of the place they're in. It's, you know, I live in Philadelphia. We've got a ton of history here. But I don't walk around all day being like, oh, yes, that is the house where James Madison did that thing. It's like, no, but you're aware of it and it does come up occasionally.
Right. And it's cooler that way because it's like, oh, what does that mean? And what does that mean? Yeah, I try to I have little things that I've hinted at that I haven't gotten all the way into yet, but hopefully we'll get to see some of it eventually.
It gives fans more fun things to do, right? To imagine their way into the story, to imagine what's the backstory there. The things, you're creating a sandbox for other people to play in.
Yes, absolutely. That's my favorite thing about world building like this is like the sense of like, well, and then now people can write their own stories in this world and create their own dragons and stuff too, which is very cool. Do you know all that beforehand? Like, do you start with the whole like history in your head, or is that as you go along, you're like, here's a good thing that would be cool to drop in, and then it develops as it goes?
I sort of reverse engineer it. So I tend to start with characters and kind of a vibe. And as I build that, I learn as I go, and then I go back and revise and make it look seamless. But often I only learn in the first draft what the mythology of the world is, as the characters need to know it, or as I need to hide it from them. As like, you know, Abel will do something and someone else is lying to him about something, and I have to then figure out why. Why did this person lie? And that builds out the lie for me. And then I go back and make it neater. But it's mostly because I don't outline. So my first draft is really my outline.
Oh my God, me too. And I as I always say, I'm like, it would be really helpful to be an outlining kind of author in a writing a 15-book series.
I'm shocked you don't outline. I always assumed you were like a really detailed outliner. I was gonna message you before all this to be like, because I'm writing book 3 and I'm stuck at this one part, and I was like gonna ask you for outlining advice, but you don't do it. You're useless to me. What am I doing?
I'm sorry. I mean, usually, actually, what I'll do is I have like a few images in my head that I'm like, these are going to show up in the book, like a few scenes usually. And then sometimes I know the ending, like with book 8, I knew the ending because I was like, that's where we're going. Not with book 15. Book 15, the one I just did, I was like, well, I don't know, let's see what happens.
Oh no, I'm scared now as a reader.
I'm sorry. I think it turned out kind of cool. Like, I feel like that's more fun because if I don't know the ending, then I'm not telegraphing it as I'm writing it.
Yeah.
So, like not knowing how book 5 was going to wrap up, I didn't drop too many hints ahead of time because I couldn't.
Because you had no clue. Yeah.
But what's really hard is writing a prophecy in book 1 that has to come true by book 5 and not knowing quite what's going to happen there.
Yeah.
So,
one of the things I wanted to do in this book that was both part of my storytelling mission, but also making my life easier as an author, was not having any sort of prophecy that I had to then fulfill. Because I kind of didn't want to write a chosen one narrative. I really wanted to write a narrative about a group of kids who see a problem and go to fix it with the resources they have. They are choosing to be the heroes in a very unheroic world instead of being chosen by their world. And I felt like that was a fun experiment to do, and they'll fall short, and there's a lot of moral gray area in their world, and they're all trying to be their best selves. Because I really think it's important to celebrate. We're very good as a society at hero narratives, but hero narratives are rarely the reality of how change happens.
Yeah.
Where usually it's movements, it's communities, it's people learning when they're not the center of the thing, and learning to work towards something that is not about them, which especially for a white man, is hard to unlearn in America. And so I wanted to tell a story where Abel is the main character and he is the protagonist, and it is his action and choices that drive the story. But he's not the chosen one, and there's no way he can do it alone. And he doesn't bring everything to the table. And at the end of the day, he has to realize, it's not even about him; it's about the dragons.
Yeah, I love that. And Roa and Topher, right?
Yeah, Roa and Topher,
who are like so important, I think.
Yeah.
Also, yeah.
I was nervous to write Roa, who's non-binary, because I am not. It's not an experience I have, and so I had to do a lot of sharing it with friends and being like, "Hey, am I getting this right? Is this strange?" And I knew writing a book for younger readers, many of whom are non-binary themselves or have siblings or whatever, but also many of whom won't have any idea what that is. And figuring out in the world building how to introduce that in a way, in a world where homophobia and gender phobia and all of that stuff doesn't exist, because there's no homophobia in the world of Battle Dragons. They don't police gender and sexuality the way our world does. I didn't want to import that. So how do I introduce a concept in a realistic way in the world without being like, and now here's the after school special portion. And
Alex, can I tell you the craziest thing? There's a non-binary human in book 15, and I had to do the same thing. I had to go through I was like, well, but they're all just like, yeah, of course.
Right.
So how do I explain it, but also be like, oh, of course, how do you put it in? It is tricky.
Yeah.
I think it's important. I think it's great to have to have worlds like that, to have our fantasy worlds not have the problems that our world has.
Yeah, and so the first time I wrote it, the first draft, there was a scene where Topher, I needed to establish him as a bully. He bullies Roa and misgenders them. And I realized that was so not working. That wasn't the world I wanted created. That also made him too unredeemable. And it just did it wasn't right to the world. And I realized I couldn't. He got smacked down pretty hard for it in the scene, but I didn't even want that to be the way it was happening. I wanted him to be a bully who never would even think to bully someone about that. And so I had to rewrite the scene with that in mind.
Yeah, I think you do a great job actually with Topher. Like, I feel like he is someone who you get to sort of see him from the outside and gradually be like, oh, this is what's really going on with his life. And it's very interesting. I want to go back to the chosen one thing, because that's something I think about a lot too. Like, that's actually why all the Wings of Fire books each one's a different protagonist, because that's something that I'm hoping I'm conveying, that like anyone can save the world. You know, everyone has to be a part of it. Like it's not just one person or dragon.
Yeah.
They're all working together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that so much. I wanted to ask you which of the kin you are, because I took that quiz on your website.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I should tell everyone there's a witch kin. So there's 4 main kins in Dracopolis. The gangs, we call them kins because, you know, why not? It sounds cool. And there are 4 main ones. The Red Talons, who are the most powerful, most brutal, most vicious, and richest of the kins, and control the most territory. They control the neighborhood where our hero lives, and, you know, so they're very scary. And they value power more than anything else. And they're kind of in league with the police. They pay off the police, and so they're kind of tied to the state, even though they're criminals. Then there are the Thunderwings, who value knowledge above all else. They're the scientists, the veterinarians. They run the illegal dragon veterinary clinics. They are the hackers. They are the spies. They're the techies. They're the teachers. They infiltrate, you know, everywhere, because knowledge is what they value. Then there are the Sky Knights, who value justice above all, and they serve a cause of the liberation of people from this corrupt system. But only people. They don't really care about dragons, and they actually don't care about individual people. They care about their cause, and they're willing to sacrifice anyone and anything to achieve this liberation and to achieve what they see as justice. So they're noble aims, but brutal methods. And then there are the Windbreakers, whose name just makes me giggle every time. And they are on the side of chaos. They're anarchists. They control no territory. They battle no dragons, and they believe in causing chaos and mocking and undermining the system. They don't want to exploit the system. They want to blow it up. And so those are the 4 kins. I almost don't want to say which one I'm in, but I did, because I feel like it would favor one. But I did create a "Which kin are you in" quiz, so I'll drop in the chat a link to that, so I dropped it into the chat. So I don't want to say what I am, though.
Okay.
Though I think if you read the book, you could probably tell which one I'm in and feel affinity towards. But I'm always curious so I got to know which kin you landed in from the quiz.
I ended up in the Sky Knights, which surprised me a little.
A lot of writers end up in the Sky Knights. It's either Sky Knights or Thunderwings. I'm finding. I'm always a little wary when they end up in the Red Talon. Well, because the Sky Knights are, I think, the closest, where a lot of us are idealists, right? You get into storytelling, you have a vision of how the world could be, and you want your stories to help get it there. That's what activists do. I mean, like, so it makes sense that you would be a Sky Knight. I hope you're not as vicious.
not in real life, just in my books.
Obviously, I feel some affinity for Sky Knights. You know, a major character who is beloved is a Sky Knight. So, you know, they're cool.
Actually, I wanted to ask you, in the they do some symbol with their hands, like some kind of infinity symbol. Is that a thing you could show us? Do you know?
Let's see if I can do. Okay, I haven't totally. You know, I'm not doing it well. You make someone surely knows how to do it. You make an infinity symbol with your hands, but I'm failing at it. Yeah, it's basically like that. Yeah.
Nice.
There it is. Yeah. Sorry, it's 10 p.m. here, and yeah, you just make a little like boom.
Got it. Okay. Cool.
A little gang sign.
I like.
You know, I'm teaching the children about joining gangs.
I like cool gangs because they're gonna be the dragons. So.
And they mostly get their comeuppance for their criminality.
That's right. Really, the good guys are the ones that are like on the side of the dragons, which is the best thing. Speaking of which, do you have other like favorite dragon stories? Are there like dragons that you loved before all this, like growing up, or? And
I drew on a lot of them. When starting, I started to think about like the dragon mythology I love, what I was going to use, what I was going to twist. And one of my favorite interpretations of dragons that I in no way got to use was Ursula Le Guin's Earthsea dragons. Their relationship to language and power, their ancient wisdom that is brutal. I love that. So the dragons in Earthsea are just some of my favorite. I love Dragons Love Tacos, so I put a reference into that. Because of Dragons Love Tacos. I have a 3-year-old, so I spent a lot of time reading that picture book. So
I noticed that. I was like, wait, that's got to be a reference.
Yeah. The scene where Karak is like settled down. He's a very violent dragon, but he's totally calm by tacos. It's the great thing about writing a dragon, a contemporary world, a realistic city, is I can do stuff like that. I can put tacos.
That's true. I can't put tacos in Wings of Fire. I mean, that'd be tricky.
It would be tricky to come up with how that works. But I love inventing fantasy world food. I'm kind of bummed. I got to invent wyvern wafers, which are the chocolate candies they eat. In the first 3 drafts, those were just Kit Kats in fun flavors because I love Kit Kats. And I was really hoping to become a brand ambassador for Kit Kats by shamelessly putting product placement in. But it didn't work out, and my editor made me change it. So they're now wyvern wafers. Other dragons I love, I think it's not a kid's series, but the Temeraire series, His Majesty's Dragon. Oh, yeah. One of the coolest Napoleonic, for those of you who don't know it, the Napoleonic Wars, but with dragons. It's like Master and Commander, but with dragons. It's so cool. The world building is so astonishing and so specific.
And the dragon, that's one where the humans and the dragons do communicate with each other.
Yeah.
And like there's so for the first like several books, it's all from the humans' point of view, but there's a little bit of Temeraire. And then suddenly there was a book where a lot of it was from Temeraire's point of view. Oh my God, and I loved it so much. I was like, why was it always like this? Poor Temeraire. He's really funny. And she also does a great job of like the different kinds of dragons. Like,
yeah, she gets very specific. She writes whole scientific like tracks about the dragons in the like afterwards with their like skeletal system. I'm not that fancy.
I know, same. Like how their different weapons work and stuff.
I have been trying. I do have to think about how their different weapons work because the battles are so key. And they play that. There's a card game in the book called Dracotech that's kind of like a little bit Pokemon, a little bit Magic the Gathering. That I dream of one day it being a real card game. So I had to think a little bit about their breath weapons, their strengths, their weaknesses, so that someone could one day make the card game.
I hope that happens. I totally want that card game.
I would so play that.
Same. I love this book too. Have you read Tooth and Claw?
No, I don't even know Tooth and Claw.
It's really good. It's also adult. It's also really technically an adult book. Sorry, readers, but I'm sure there are some older readers here tonight. It is like a she calls it Trollop, but with dragons. So if you don't know Trollop, it's sort of Jane Austen, but with dragons. But it's like a little more. The sensibility is slightly different, but it's really funny. Like it's they're all the main characters are dragons, and they just live in this very like sort of 18th century feeling like. Oppressive society with like lots of rules and lots of etiquette. It's very hilarious and really smartly written.
Do you have a favorite or maybe a top 2 dragons from pop culture that you think are like top, that you didn't write? You can't pick your own. You are allowed to pick mine, however.
Okay.
A top favorite pop culture dragons.
It's so hard. I mean, the sort of obvious one that comes to mind is Toothless. Like, who doesn't love Toothless?
Well, let me ask that differently then. If you could ride any dragon that's not your own creation, what dragon would you want to ride? I guess you can say Toothless.
Yeah. I mean, Toothless feels the safest. Like, I don't think I would want to ride Smog. Like, I feel like that wouldn't go well.
That would not go well.
And then, like, the other dragons, like, I love these books, the Tea Dragon Society, which are like, they're like your books, but like the opposite. They're like, they're the opposite. Dragons be tiny and adorable.
Yeah, they might be the perfect opposite, actually, of mine.
Which is the great thing about dragons, that you can have these and yours, and just like so many different kinds.
Well, that's what I love about dragons, right? Like you can put so much of humanity can be learned through dragons. Like, there's a reason we're all so drawn to the dragon myth. I think one of the reasons I write middle schoolers and dragons specifically in combination is because I think that is such a powerful juxtaposition where you've got these powerful creatures and these young people who are just coming into their own autonomy but don't really have any power. So they're starting to realize that the world is not quite what they think it is and that they're trying to get their own sense of identity, but they don't have any power. And suddenly you pair them with a dragon. What is a middle schooler going to do with a dragon? I think it reveals a lot. I think power doesn't change you. I think it reveals you. And I think what a cool way to reveal characters is through dragons. And I think we all do that in our dragon books, that we use dragons to say something about humans. I think weirdly, dragons make us more human, and our relationship to dragons teaches us what it is to be human.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I think that's really true. I know people ask me a lot at these events, like, why do you write about dragons? And I was like, who wouldn't want to write about dragons? I don't know how to answer that question.
I mean, they're awesome. I think they're awesome, but they're so much more than awesome, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's really true. And that, you know, I like to say they feel to me like they like superheroes. Like they all can fly in my world, and they, you know, some of them can breathe fire, some of them can do other things. But you're right, it is about like what you do with that power, and like yeah, and how it interacts with the world and the problems in the world around you. So it's really cool.
Have you invented any cool breath weapons that you've never used that you're allowed to say? Is there anything cool that you haven't been able to use?
I don't think so. There's the ice dragons that freeze you with their breath, which I have used, and then there's the rain wings, the venom that they spit. But I don't think there's another one that hasn't come up yet. Yeah, not that I mean, yes, and just keep reading and you'll see. I love am I allowed? I think it's not too much of a spoiler to talk about the dragon in your book that shoots like shards of gems.
Oh yeah, we can talk about the dragon.
Oh my god, that was so cool.
Yeah, so the Widowmaker.
Yes.
And they shoot jagged jewels, and so there's different ones that shoot different jagged shards of glass, basically.
Yeah, that was something I'd never seen before. That was very exciting.
Yeah, I started to think I didn't want to just do the standard breath weapons, because I thought you're matching these dragons in interesting battles with each other, and you have to give them strengths and weaknesses. I thought it was just like fire and ice and fog and acid clashing. Like, okay, that's fun. But it's going to get tiresome eventually. So I was like, I want to start making up cool, interesting powers. So yeah, the jagged gems that shoot shrapnel, I thought was, oh, that's cool. How does the biology of that work? But I figured it out.
Yeah, it made a lot of sense. I was like, oh yeah.
Because the city of Dracopolis was surrounded by desert, that then the warring dragons in ancient history burned to glass. You've got all this glass out there that I figure, oh, dragons could like eat it and digest it into their system, and certain breeds have like ways of digesting it that have evolved that let them shoot these jewels. That's what I decided.
And also it works really well because of the sort of like the urban setting, like is very like there's so much collateral damage from like flying jewel shards everywhere. Right. Like it adds to the effect of like you could just be standing anywhere and suddenly dragons are battling overhead. Oh my god.
Yeah. And I'm a very visual person, so I really play the movie out in my head and just write down what I'm seeing. So just for me, the image of these jewels shooting through the street past billboards and neon signs and crashing into a wall as another dragon shoots fire just like worked. I can spoil book 3 because it'll be, you know, a year and a half, 2 years before it comes out, so no one will remember. I did just invent the creepiest power for a dragon that I just want to share because I thought of it the other day and I'm excited. It shoots spikes of bone, and you hear it. You get a warning because you hear this like cracking sound as it prepares to spit out bone at you. And I was like, oh, that's so creepy. I gotta use it.
Is it like its own bones that it's like, or is it like, okay, oh my god.
And then it reproduces, like obviously it regrows bone quickly. Shoots out spikes. Oh, it's so creepy. I creep myself out just talking about it.
That's amazing. Oh my god, I'm so excited to read it. Is book 2, is it on a year schedule? So like we get book 2 a year from now? Book
2 will be in the spring. And book 3 will be then I think the next fall, assuming I get it done in time.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot. They're not short books. So I'm like, how am I going to get it done in time? But having a 3-year-old too doesn't help.
Yeah, no. Oh my god, that was me. That was when I started Wings of Fire. It was on a 6-month schedule, and I had a baby, and then I had another baby, and then I just like fell apart. And I was like, maybe one a year.
one baby a year, or one book a year?
One book a year. 2 babies, quite enough for me. 2 babies and 2 fur balls. Can I introduce my puppy? Because I posted about her on Instagram. Oh, she's.
Oh, this is very exciting. We're meeting the new puppy. The new puppy.
She's never so like my other dog has been on several events, but this is Bumblebee's first event. So
Bumblebee. Is there a story behind Bumblebee's name?
It's one of the dragons in Wings of Fire. So because I was like a little bit thinking like I've written 15, 17 Wings of Fire books. I should get a puppy. I deserve a puppy.
Why of all the names? I mean, you've named so many dragons at this point. Why is that dog Bumblebee?
I actually gave my children like a list, and I was kind of like, it doesn't have to be a dragon because I have a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old. So I was like, if you want to choose a different name, that's okay. But if you want to choose a Wings of Fire name, feel free. I really would have liked Kinkajou or Cricket because they're two of my favorite dragons, and they have really good personalities. But the kids loved Bumblebee, who is this tiny little dragon that shows up in like books 12 and 13, who is a pain in the butt. It's like kind of a holy terror. So I'm like, let's not have Bumblebee's personality. Let's not. Oh, let's please not.
I found one of the most fun things is inventing the dragon personalities. And I think it's something you do so well, writing such a massive cast of dragons who all have such distinct personalities. I mean, it helps that they can talk, but but so writing these dragons and trying to make sure they feel distinct, and especially as the series goes on, Abel is going to meet a lot of dragons, and figuring out how to make them all distinct and give them dragon-y personalities, I think is really hard. So I just want to praise you for that.
I mean, it's really fun writing the little ones like Bumblebee, and like when there are kids around me all the time. So it was not too hard to reach back and remember.
When you're writing your dragons, do you think of them? Do you create like animal analogs to them? Are you like importing in your imagination, like, oh, this dragon has like horsey vibes, and this one has like cat vibes?
That's really funny. I haven't done horse and cat yet. I mean, the tribes have certain animal characteristics like embedded in them. So like, the sky wings have scorpion tails, and the mud wings are sort of loosely based on crocodiles. And then for the books on the new continent, I did a bunch of research into insects. So there could be like the butterfly dragons, and then like the scary insect dragons. And that was no fun. Watching the insect documentaries is not my favorite thing. Talk about creepy. If you're looking for like creepy things your dragons can do, like just anything about insects will give you all kinds of nightmares and good ideas.
Are there going to be like the zombie, those ants? Are they ants? Okay, I won't.
Yes. I can't say any more about that, but absolutely. I find those like the most interesting and creepy of all the like insect plant interactions in the world. So
as I was thinking about this conversation, I was daydreaming about world building, and I was like, there's a universe, and I'm not saying this is canon. I'm saying this is just me daydreaming it today. There's a universe actually where the events of battle dragons take place thousands of years in the future from Wings of Fire. There's a universe where that makes complete sense.
I totally could see that. Absolutely. Okay, I'm getting yelled at in the chat because I said sky wings and I clearly meant sand wings. And now I want to be like, well, it's 10 p.m. here, except that's when my day starts, so I have no excuse. I am a night owl writing person.
Yeah.
Actually, I could totally see that. Like, what do the dragons do to each other that ends up with the world of battle dragons? It'd be really funny.
I'm looking ahead and had the chat open. Now I'm looking at it to see. I always enjoy the trolling that occurs.
I know, right? I'm gonna look at these the questions from the
I think
and see if I can do this. All right, there's one that says, do you have any scrapped content from the book that you're allowed to share with us?
Do you want to go first?
No, you go first.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it just came out, so most people haven't read it, so it's hard to spoil because you don't know even what I'm spoiling, so I can share whatever I want. For me, it was a lot of the world building stuff that was just slowing down the plot. So just a lot of like fun games they play and food they eat. I created this whole illegal market for dragon parts. There's like poachers who poach dragon, and it was too gruesome. Yeah. So I had to remove that. There were some.
I feel like the equivalent in my world would be the market where they sell parts of humans. It's like, here's a charred human arm. And but I did not even think of that, no.
Yeah, it's really gruesome. I might reference it later in the series that it exists as just like a dark underbelly of Dracopolis, but it was way too gruesome. And I wanted to spend a lot more time in the drag club, but it just, it's a middle grade novel and I just couldn't. I wanted to spend more time. I wrote a whole scene in the illegal veterinary clinic but it just was slowing down the plot. So anything that was cool and kept the plot moving, I kept in. So it's not like I cut any awesome revelations that will later come out. It's like I used my best ideas. I'm not holding anything back from readers, you know.
Sorry, my puppy is now trying to chew the things on my desk. I have all these papers on the floor, and I was trying to get some work done today, and now they're all nibbled around the edges. Yeah, I think for mine, the one that I always think of when people ask me this question is that when I first started the very first book, the first scene that popped into my head was the hatching scene where all the little prophecy dragons hatch together. And I actually wrote it. And I wrote it a few different ways. And I wrote it with more dragons. And I wrote it from different points of view. And then I realized when I kind of figured out how many dragons there should be, how they connected to the prophecy, and like what the arc of the first book was going to be, it kind of gave away too much about the character arc that there's a secret that Clay finds out by the end of the book that would have been revealed if I had included that scene. Yeah. Because it was, you know, from his point of view, and it showed all the like feelings he was having, which is sort of what he discovers later. But it does, I think, end up in the graphic novel.
Oh, I was going to say, do you find that stuff using, maybe you, and I know how complicated these things are, and maybe you don't want to talk about it, but I know people are very interested in the Netflix show. Chris, does that stuff you used and know and didn't write, does that come up? Do you get to like talk to the producers or those screenwriters about it and be like, hey, here's what's going on? Like they're engaging you in those conversations?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. It's so exciting. Okay, puppy, stop eating my books. It's actually really exciting because the showrunners are very into the books. Like they have a daughter who's read them all, and they read them all with her. And so they really get them, you know. They're not just like, oh, cool dragons. Like they really understand the books and like what I'm doing with the themes and stuff. And so so I can talk to them about like, you know, a thing I didn't get to include is this, or like, wouldn't it have been fun to spend more time on this? And who knows? Like, I can't say for sure, like, this will end up in the series.
Right. Or this. You don't have power. This is the thing people need to know about Hollywood is the writer of the book it's based on are the least powerful people involved.
It's true. I mean, I already feel like I'm getting to see more than like most writers. Like they're so kind about including me in like conversations and showing me stuff. But also it's really far away. So a ton of things could change between now and then. Like it's a long process. You know, the great thing about being an author is like I can do the entire thing myself here in my room in the middle of the night. But like a TV show, there's like hundreds of people involved. Yeah. I feel like they introduce me to new people every month, and it's just my screen is just full of little boxes, and I'm like, oh, how am I going to keep track? Yeah. But it is very exciting. I think the art is amazing. I think that the writers are incredibly cool. I've gotten to meet all the writers they've hired for the writers' room, and like they're just really interesting, thoughtful people that ask really interesting, thoughtful questions that make me think like, oh, why did I do that? And like, how does that fit into the bigger story? And how can we show it visually? Because there's so much they can do that I can't do, right. But there's so much that they can't. Like, I'm like, well, why don't we have some inner monologues? They're like, no,
that's not how TV works.
I'm like, the play has a lot of feelings. I think we should feel his feelings. So
they're like, oh, she is so not a screenwriter. Yeah. Oh, well, I'm so excited. Right? I'm so excited. So I can't wait.
I'm pretty excited too. I think it's going to be fun. Fun to work on and fun to like see what happens as it goes along. Okay, so they ask, how did you come up with the idea for Battle Dragons and how many books do you want to write for it? You kind of sort of answered that, or do you want to have anything else?
So how many? I mean, I would go infinite. I think there's so many stories. I hope I created a world that feels big enough. Right now, I'd like to tell Abel's story in, I think, 4 books, if I can. But then I have lots of other stories to go with that intersect and that prequels and post-after things and simultaneous and all of that stuff. I've got so much in my head. But the idea itself was just taking things I'm passionate about. I love sci-fi. I love fantasy, so I wanted to write a mashup. I love the Fast and the Furious movies, and I wanted to write something with that kind of fun that just feels like just play, and that just like big, huge things happen that are so over the top and just exciting and fun and funny, but then with real heart, you know, like those Fast and the Furious movies are all about like family, you know, Vin Diesel saying family, really intense ways. And I wanted something with that kind of heart that is about a community and about people, a lot of flawed people doing their best in difficult situations. And I feel like that's what's going to hopefully drive people through the series. Dragons are awesome, and people want to read about them, and that's great. But ultimately, it's the characters and their relationships and their wants and needs and hopes and shortcomings that are going to make readers care and stick with the series. And I fell in love with these characters. I wanted to write about a kid who's a lot like I was, you know, in middle school, being anxious, not thinking you measure up. He's got 2 older siblings who are both in their own ways very accomplished. And he feels like he doesn't measure up and never will. And having those feelings, and then the wish fulfillment side, the fantasy side, is now you've got a giant murderous dragon at your beck and call. What would that be like to like not just master the dragon, but master yourself, master your own anxiety, your own confidence, your friendships. So yeah, I wanted to explore those themes of what it's like to be 13, but also to have dragons in a futuristic city run by criminal people riding gangs.
I think you do it really well. It's a great balance of that feeling of being 13 and then getting a cool dragon. Like it kind of like it's all in there, and you do it amazingly. So.
And I wanted to write about gaming, like you mentioned the card game, you know, that they play. Like I think gaming is such a big part of young people's lives now that to write a realistic story, they had to play games, right? Like that's just what young people do. But I wanted the games to be relevant to their life and to what they have to do. It's the knowledge they have from gaming informs the story. And so I got to play with that, that it wasn't just some thing they did on the side that didn't matter. It matters to how they succeed or not.
Yeah, and then he thinks about it as he's doing the battling. He's like, now I know this is more powerful than this because of the game. It's
right.
Really cool. It's really smart. I think we're almost at our last couple of questions.
Okay.
So just want to throw you a couple. One is, how do you get your books done by the publish date? Do you have any advice?
It's different for every book, right? So this, I think, Battle Dragons is my 25th or 26th book, and it's different every time. This is the first book I wrote during a global pandemic with a 3-year-old, at the time a 2-year-old stuck at home. I wrote it a lot during her naps. Most of it was written while she was napping in the afternoon. My husband's a teacher, and so he was teaching online all day, and I had to be watching.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it was brutal. It was brutal. But because it was so brutal and so stressful and everything, and you know, by the end of the day, he was exhausted, I was exhausted, our child was exhausted. Dracopolis became my escape. I wrote this book. It was a joy to sit down every day. I got to spend time in this imaginary world that I loved. And you know, like, I basically was like either watching Avatar: The Last Airbender on Netflix or writing this book, and like those were my escapes.
Aww.
And so that's how I got it done. Is I genuinely wanted to get back to the computer and work every day.
That's so nice.
Now I don't know. Now I'm just.
We have to lock you in the house again with nothing else to do except write book 4.
I bribe myself. I don't know if you do something like this. I bribe myself with things. So I love Kit Kats. So I'll buy Kit Kats and put them on my desk. Like I can't do that until I get my writing goal for the day done, my word count or my scene or whatever I set for myself. And then I get to eat the Kit Kat. I fail half the time and just eat the Kit Kat anyway.
For me, it's like, it's even worse. It's like I bring some kind of little dessert thing up and I put it next to my computer and I'm like, you're not allowed to have that until you start writing. Stop noodling around the computer. That thing is staring at you, and you can have it as soon as you like turn to Microsoft Word and stop doing other things.
So this is important writing advice for any of you out there who want to be writers yourselves or who are writers. Sugar, dogs, and sugar. I think the 2 essential elements to a successful writing career are have a dog if you can, and have sugar if you can.
But keep your important manuscripts away from the dog is what I'm discovering also.
Ooh, yikes.
I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure I don't need whatever that
the
was.
next book is going to be delayed. You saw it here first. I think there's 1 or 2 people from Scholastic on this, so we should be careful.
No, they already have it. It's like, it's happening. Actually, I think we're going to reveal the cover of book 15 tomorrow. It is so pretty. Oh my God.
I'm so excited.
Really excited. I get to put it on Instagram. So
it'll go up on Instagram tomorrow?
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I saw you posted that you've seen the cover for Battle Dragons 2.
Seen the cover for Battle Dragons 2. It's astonishing. I didn't think they could top this cover. This cover is so cool. They did. They topped it, and I love it. And I can't wait to share it. They also, I don't know, people can't see this, but It doesn't really translate to the screen, but the book has dragon scale end papers.
Oh my God, I saw that and I was so jealous.
It's so cool. I couldn't believe it. Maeve Norton is the designer of the book, works for Scholastic. She's amazing. I didn't know about it. It just showed up at my house and I opened it and saw it stamped with a dragon. There's like a dragon stamp on the hardcover under the jacket that says book 1. And then it's got dragon scales. What? I feel so lucky. I feel so lucky. I had nothing to do with that. I can't take credit.
Though.
But oh, it's so pretty. I just want to touch it all the time. It's a little weird when I do that.
It's fine. It's as close as we get to having a real dragon. Just stand here, pet your book. All right, Kellyanne, I think we're supposed to wrap up now, right? Because it's 10:50, so I think she's coming. Oh, look, the people in the chat say the cover was leaked.
I know, I'm seeing that. I'm like, I'm not going to go Google it. I'm going to honor the release tomorrow.
Well, tomorrow everyone will. We'll get to see it.
Before this ends, I do want to first. I want to thank you for doing this with me. Thank you so much, the queen of dragons. Thank you for reading my book and chatting with me. I really appreciate it. I want to thank Mysterious Galaxy for hosting this. I hope you will all click on that blue button and buy books from them and support bookstores. If you have a bookstore in your community, wherever you are, please support them. Buy books. It doesn't have to be ours, though it should be. Buy books from your
and other books.
Yeah, buy our books, buy other books. I hope. I mean, obviously, I hope you buy mine. I have a 3-year-old. It's expensive.
And dogs.
And dogs.
Yeah.
Support dogs. Support children. Well, Alex did my job wonderfully for me. I was just going to come up here to tell you guys to click that green button and buy his book. So my job here is done. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I had so much fun watching tonight's event. You guys were so great, and I'm sure that our lovely audience had a ton of fun too. Thank you to our audience for joining us. And one more time, because it can't hurt, if you hit that green button, you can buy Alex's book, and you can get a signed or personalized book plate by writing in your order comments who you'd like him to make that out to. So with that, I'm just going to let everyone go. Also, you guys are both champions for doing this late at night, because you guys are on the East Coast.
Thank
so
you.
It's really fun.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for being here on your Thursday night. I really I appreciate it.
Of course. You guys have a good one. Good night, everyone.